First and foremost, I think it's really important that we spend a lot of time on recruiting our talents and our future talents, which is something I believe we're really missing out on, is the fact that we are always looking for the one that has the most experience or particularly the educational background to perform the job. And I can tell one of the main reasons why I have elevated my career so fast is because I got the opportunity to take over a team, and 90% of the team had resigned at that point of time because of bad conditions. So I had the opportunity to recruit 20 new people, field engineers, into my team. And I actually put all my eggs on the underdogs, the ones that nobody believed in, the ones that didn't particularly have the educational background or the experience, because I took my time to actually invest my time and focus area on learning them and getting them onboarded instead of expecting them to come and do the job without any notification at all.
Okay, so we have Darian Ari from GlobalConnect, and we're going to talk about the service optimization trifecta. Before we get into that, tell everyone a little about yourself, your role, and what the company does.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Darian is my name, 26 years old, living in a small town outside of Stockholm called Västerås. I am currently the director of our Nordic Smart Connect department. We are allocated in Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. And GlobalConnect basically works with fiber optics and delivering network services to B2B customers. So it's everything from cybersecurity to fiber optics to smart solutions for IoT devices. And yeah, basically everything from A to Z when it comes to networking. And that's kind of it.
Great. Okay, so we're going to talk about the importance of enablement, empowerment, and execution. Can you talk first about, in your role and your organization, why service optimization is important?
Yeah, well, sure. If you would ask me this question just a couple of years ago, I think the answer would be very different significantly. But I would say it's the increased customer demands that has made sure that we need to focus on optimizing the increased customer demands, which in that turn, the customers also have really high demands on laws that they need to follow when it comes to networking and security overall. They have their demands towards their management team that they need to secure up some stuff. We've seen many good examples recently of companies being hit by cybersecurity attacks, which have lost millions and millions just because of the fact that they have not taken security or optimization into consideration. And I would say this puts us as a service provider in a really tricky position, because when they actually recognize the issue and try to solve it by buying a new product or optimizing their current solution, it is always under criticality. So this means we always have to work not proactively, but reactively with the customers and designing their solution and what they actually need under production. So instead of working with the portfolio that we have, that we sell towards those customers, it is rather impossible to do that at the moment. Since every customer is unique, they are expecting different kind of stuff based on their organization or what they are doing overall. So I would say that's the biggest challenge, to optimize during rollout.
Okay, so are you saying there's a lot of customization in the solutions that your customers are using?
Well, exactly. And the demands differ quite heavily from customers to customers. Mm-hmm. And especially when a customer all of a sudden receives an attack or needs to do something critical about their current solution, the product portfolio that you're offering on the market is not always dockable into what they are looking for. So basically optimizing and developing under production, that's the tricky part currently,
Okay.
I would say.
Okay. All right. So if we start to break these things out, if we talk about enablement, what's your perspective on considerations there based on what you are trying to accomplish?
Well, to be honest, Roy said it really well. First and foremost, I think it's really important that we spend a lot of time on recruiting our talents and our future talents, which is something I believe we're really missing out on, is the fact that we are always looking for the one that has the most experience or particularly the educational background to perform the job. And I can tell one of the main reasons why I have elevated my career so fast is because I got the opportunity to take over a team, and 90% of the team had resigned at that point of time because of bad conditions. So I had the opportunity to recruit 20 new people, field engineers, into my team. And I actually put all my eggs on the underdogs, the ones that nobody believed in, the ones that didn't particularly have the educational background or the experience, because I took my time to actually invest my time and focus area on learning them and getting them onboarded instead of expecting them to come and do the job without any notification at all. So spend more time on actually utilizing your time to get them up and running, because in that way you can always form them more easily, since they don't have any background of any other cultures or any other aspects that may interfere with what you want to achieve with them. And trust me, the trust that you get as a leader when you put your eggs on the dogs, when they are up and running and actually performing really, really well, that is unmatchable. So that's the first step. And then secondly, one of the things I would say, Sarah, is knowledge management. Provide your employees with a career path. And I think all of us can relate to that. I wouldn't go to the gym every day if it weren't for my mental health or my physical appearance of something I want to achieve by going to the gym, right? And the exact same goes for the employees, right? They want to work to achieve towards something, even if it's a salary, it's a new position, new responsibility area. Provide your employees with a clear career path. And in that way, I would really say that you could enable them of sacrificing a lot to achieve what is necessary to get there.
Yeah. I mean, certainly it's a difference with today's talent versus historically. People were happy to stay in roles for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and that's not the case anymore. How did you find your underdogs?
Exactly as Roy said, I didn't let anyone take the decisions for me when they sent in the CVs, if they were suitable for the job position I was looking for. Most of them that I recruited didn't actually, rough to say, but didn't have the mental brain there to actually do the school part of it. They were hardworking people that just wanted to get outside and get a chance. So the way I did it is actually that I spoke to many of the consultancy firms that we're working with, and I asked them to send me all the CVs directly, went through them all. And even though if I didn't like the CV because of some soft skills or some hard-coded skills like fiber optics, I took a chat with them. I had a 1-hour session, took them to a cafe, just talk about life, what their expectations are, what they have done before. And you could find some really, really golden employees by doing that.
So I think this is interesting because what you're talking about is something that many aren't doing yet, right? But I do think, to Roy's point, the idea of hiring based on years of experience is quickly becoming extinct. Now, what I'm curious about is, so I understand you went through the CVs yourself, so you weren't letting someone cast people aside for you. You wanted to make those judgment calls yourself. But when you go and sit down with these people who aren't the typical candidates that maybe the recruiters would have passed along to you, what are you looking for? Like, how are you yourself assessing whether you're willing to place a bet on them, right? Because I'm assuming you're not going to bet on just anyone, right? Like, there's something you're kind of looking for. How did you assess those meetings? What were their particular skills or behaviors that you were looking for? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. And first and foremost, I just maybe a bit to my self-background. I have a bachelor in computer science, and my job at GlobalConnect is my first job. I haven't been working in any other company before. And I actually started as a field engineer myself 5 years ago. That's how long I've been at the company. And one of my primary attributes when it comes to working, no matter what position I'm in, is that I always want to be the best at what I'm doing. It doesn't matter if I clean the floor or if I manage 100 people, I always want to be the best at what I am. And one of the factors that plays into that is the communication skills. So that was one of the things I was really, really looking for, the ability to communicate, honestly, of course. Mm-hmm. So there's a famous quote that says, if you want to really know a person really well, take them to a cafe and let them order something, right? So if they take a lot of time on themselves to make a simple decision as if they want a coffee or a cake, then you probably should back off from hiring them because it's a decision that doesn't really matter.
So the cafe was a test.
The cafe was a test, okay. Exactly. But I love people. I love different kind of people, and I don't base my employees on the fact what they have done before or what kind of experience they have. What I'm looking for is what are you able to produce and what are you able to contribute in this setup.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you feel good about the bets that you've made?
Really well. It took me to where I am because we actually flipped the department at that time and reduced CapEx by 80%. So it was the first time in 10 years that happened in GlobalConnect. And I can tell you it was purely hard work and dedication to utilize their skills. And I think that's one of the things as well, Sarah, that they didn't really see me as their manager or the leader. I was actually carrying the load with them during that journey, invested in them with a lot of stuff, and they felt really tight as a team.
So you mentioned there were a couple things you did differently. One was how you brought them in and who you placed the bets on. You also mentioned that you did a lot of the onboarding sort of yourself. So can you talk about, with people that didn't have prior experience, how did you sort of equip them to be ready to go out into the field?
So I can tell you some of the people that we hired had basically no knowledge at all of what fiber optics or networking or datacom is. I actually invested a lot of time when I got the role as a manager for the department. The first 6 months, I built an onboarding program, which was bulletproof and that my grandma could understand, basically. So we started really, really slow, to be honest. And it was on a stupid level that when I even explained it, I was like, anyone could understand this, basically. So we started really slow. And then, of course, some of the people that we hired had really good experience of what they had been doing before, but they particularly didn't have the educational background for it. So they could also be a supportive functions for the new ones to onboard them and get them up and running as soon as possible. And I didn't actually have the luck to have people in the department that was senior. I had 2 guys left when everyone resigned. And I really utilized them in a really good way to actually onboard some groups of the people that we hired at that point of time.
Okay, so can we talk a little bit about empowerment, right? So that's sort of maybe a progression, if you will, of enablement. So you have this new team, green to the organization. You yourself are young and you're taking on this new leadership role. How are you looking at empowerment and what factor does that play?
There is one thing that I have really invested a lot of time and budget in, and that is actually sales. What I'm saying is that we should empower our employees with the ability to not only perform their day-to-day duties, but to extend over that and be the face outwards for the company. There is this thing called selling service, as it's called. So the example is really, really simple. Say, for example, that you go into a store and you want to buy a shirt, and then you enter the store and the store manager comes to you and says, "Hi, sir, what are you looking for?" "Yes, just a shirt." "Absolutely, sir. I hope you have the best day of your life. Can I ask you for what kind of event?" And then you probably would say some ceremonial part for the work. And they say, "Well, sir, here's the shirt." And then usually our customers buys this tie with it. It goes really well with the shirt. So if you're interested, go ahead and you buy the shirt and you end up buying the tie as well. When you leave the store, if somebody would ask you, did that person sell you something or did they provide you with service? What would the answer be? Service, service. I said service myself as well. So that's what I'm trying to say. Like every employee within an organization have the responsibility to act as a salesperson towards the customers. They are the one out there doing the job. The salespersons are just basing their offers on some product portfolio that we have. And the same goes with the IT or field engineering department. So empowering them, I can give you a really good example of it, is that we had a challenge where we actually had a really nice price for the one that not working as a salesperson leading to the most sales lead in the organization after this session we had. So one of the technicians, for example, what they can do is that when they are visiting some customers and they are supporting them with some incident that have occurred and they can solve by themselves, and they are basically saying to the customer, "Well, you don't buy Wi-Fi access points from GlobalConnect," which means that if you would have done that, we could have supported you via us coming out there, taking 3 hours. We could have done it remotely. And they'd be like, "Whoa, does this exist?" "Yeah, well, sir, 30 minutes SLA and everything is solved if you buy the access points from GlobalConnect as well." And that actually led to a sale. That is just an example of many that we can utilize, like employees, to empower them with the ability to perform more than their regular day-to-day duties. So selling service, that is my methodology I'm living after. And it also gives a really good customer experience because just with the example with the tie and shirt, you felt that you got service and the customers will also feel that they have received service instead of you selling them something. So in short, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And I think that idea of empowering those employees to sell service, again, it goes back to the skill set. It requires a different skill set than maybe the technicians have traditionally had.
Exactly.
Right? Now, what about execution? So if I'm being honest, listening to your story, you have this new team who you're placing bets on, right? But you have customers that are going to demand execution. So how do you make sure that they get what they need, even though you're sort of taking some risk in doing things a different way?
Well, I think that's also a matter of strategy. I think what lays in the foundation of executing towards the customers and internally is a good strategy. But we had a discussion earlier as well. I think just having a strategy, we've seen many failed attempts of management presenting fancy PowerPoints, number charts of what the strategy means, but to actually portion it up to something that is digestible for each and every department is really important. And that is something I have utilized really well is what does this actually mean for our department or you as a field technician, engineer, or solution expert? And yeah, you are right, sir. Of course, we're putting a huge bet on them. But if we look at the team now, for example, they are really well skilled with the technical parts that they are doing, of course, and they are getting the support needed to always evolve for the future. And I will always say that. So when it comes to strong customer experience, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So culture always goes first. And then the strategic part is, of course, as important, but I wouldn't say it is in close to what the culture can do with the customer experience or the execution overall of it.
So you mentioned GlobalConnect is your first role coming out of school. You started as a technician yourself. You've moved pretty quickly through the ranks, and now you're in this leadership position. You said you're 26. What are your thoughts on the value of fresh perspective in this space?
That's a good question. I would say like one of the things that I really would like to implement in the new set is, of course, the way we are approaching the more traditional methodologies of being a leader versus the new modern types of things. It's really important for us as leaders to embrace that the fact that there is a lot changing in the world. So adapting to a more modern and enhancing way of actually motivating your employees has significantly been different since a couple of years back. So embracing the fact that we need to be adaptable to those changes as well as a leader, and not only expect that our employees follow what we have for kind of leadership methodologies.
Yeah. What do you think? Are there any experiences you've had that are challenging when you're with peers who have been in leadership positions for decades or situations like that?
Yeah. Well, so one of the advantages is, of course, the fact that me, myself, is the next future of leaders, and I'm working with the next generation of field workers as well. So that gives me the ability to have the fresh thinking that they have as well, to adapt myself after that. But I would say the challenges are huge, especially many of the field engineers that I currently have in the Nordic setup is my former colleagues as well. I've been working with them on the field, and we've been talking shit about management together, and all of a sudden I'm leading them. And then there's another aspect of it, which is even more challenging, is that leading leaders as a 26 years old, that is a really big challenge for me. So sitting around the table and taking decisions based on the strategy and the future of the company overall, with having people around you that basically doesn't trust you, or that you don't get your voice heard, or that you're not considered to be a candidate that can bring the heat to the table, that's a really challenging situation. But trust me, there's nothing better than executing and succeeding in those tricky situations. So you still have to just accept it and go along and do the best out of it.
Yeah, let the action speak for itself.
Exactly.
The strategy.
Exactly.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What sort of advice, I guess, or words of caution would you say to someone who has a much more old school leadership mentality?
To be fair and square, I actually like some parts of the old school mentality, even though I'm really flexible with my employees when it comes to like having remote works or being physically there. I truly feel that touching, feeling, and seeing each other face to face is really important. So that's one part that I will keep. But secondly, the only advice I would probably give is that pointing with your whole hand instead of leading the way sometimes isn't the most popular way of doing things today, even though it can be really effective if you are in a result-oriented organization where you actually need results and you're expected to deliver numbers. But otherwise, I would say that is something that really has faded away. And every time I try that approach, it always backfires. So that is one of the things. Instead of pointing with your hand, grabbing the load with the team and showing them the way is one of the things.
Yeah. Good.